On October 23rd, 2025, June Lockhart, the last surviving adult star of Lost in Space, passed away peacefully in Santa Monica at the age of 100. Before she died, she had been speaking more freely than at any point in the previous 6 decades, sharing things in her final interviews that the network had never wanted made public. Her death marked the closing of a chapter that had remained deliberately incomplete for generations. But it also opened the door to a story that had been waiting 60 years to be told in full. There's something about outliving nearly everyone you worked with that makes a person stop protecting a story. When the cameras are rolling for what might be the last time, you stop choosing your words carefully and you simply tell the truth. That is exactly what happened in the final years of the Lost in Space cast. By 2025, only 3 members of the original Robinson family remained alive. Bill Mumy, who played the boy genius Will Robinson from age 10 to 14, had turned 72. Angela Cartwright, his television sister Penny, was 73. Marta Kristen, the eldest daughter Judy, had reached 81. And yet, despite everything the decades had taken from them, they were still finding their way back to one another. On March 17, 2026, Mumy posted a photograph of himself standing with Cartwright and Kristen, captioning it simply, "Judy, Penny, and Will Robinson spotted on Earth yesterday." 60 years after the show first aired, they were still showing up for each other. That single fact tells you something important about what this show really was underneath the foam rubber aliens and the spray-painted props. Before Jonathan Harris was Dr. Smith, he was a pharmacist's son from a 6-story tenement building in the Bronx who had invented himself from the ground up. His parents were Russian immigrants. His father worked in Manhattan's garment district, and the boy who grew up speaking what he later described as thick Bronx street slang made a decision early in life that he was going to become someone else entirely. He changed his surname from Karasukian to Harris at 17, against his father's furious objections. He earned a pharmacy degree he never used, fabricated an acting resume, and talked his way into a career that eventually included Broadway, The Twilight Zone, and roughly 125 stage productions. When Irwin Allen offered him the role on Lost in Space, Harris looked at the character as written and immediately recognized a career trap. Dr. Smith was a cold-blooded spy who killed a guard in the pilot's opening minutes and reprogrammed the robot to eliminate the Robinson family in their sleep. He was designed to be despicable and written out within 5 episodes. Harris understood precisely what this meant. A role that ends in 5 episodes is not a career. It is an expensive dead end. So he started rewriting things quietly at first. He would arrive on set with entirely new pages of dialogue written overnight, telling the cast, "Let us go over the scene. I have changed all the dialogue." Bill Mumy, still a child at the time, watched this and later described it with genuine awe. Harris would rewrite scenes and then quietly engineer every beat of the action so that all roads led back to Smith. The cowardly eye rolls, the melodramatic wailing about his back, and most importantly the cascade of invented insults hurled at the robot. None of it appeared in any script. Harris sat up nights constructing phrases like bubble-headed booby, nickel-plated nincompoop, and bellicose bumpkin. His reasoning was perfectly logical. The robot was wise to Smith's schemes, and Smith had to attack it constantly to keep it from exposing him. Every insult was a survival tactic dressed as comedy. By the time Irwin Allen understood what had happened, 500 fan letters a month were pouring in for Dr. Smith. Allen had no realistic choice but to celebrate it, later saying openly that Harris had dictated what they should do with the character entirely. Harris subsequently negotiated a special guest star credit on all 83 episodes, reportedly the first time that billing structure had appeared on American television. But Allen's public praise concealed a private discomfort, because the actor he had hired to be his leading hero was watching his role dissolve in front of him, and there was nothing either of them could do about it anymore. Guy Williams came to Lost in Space as one of the most recognizable men on American television. 4 years as Zorro on Disney had made him a genuine star. The show's merchandise had generated $11 million within months of its premiere, and he was tall, fencing trained since age 7, and genuinely excited about playing John Robinson, the brilliant mission commander who would guide his family through the universe. This was supposed to be his show. The transformation happened gradually enough to feel almost polite. In Season 1, his screen time began shrinking as the Dr. Smith storylines expanded. By Season 2, it was a pattern. By Season 3, it was simply the reality of the production. Williams appeared on set, delivered a handful of lines, and stood in the background while Harris, Mumi, and the robot carried the episode forward. Mark Goddard described the atmosphere directly, noting that there were hard feelings from Williams in particular. Harris himself acknowledged the damage, which is remarkable given that he was the cause of it. He said openly that Williams had been hired to be the star of the piece and ended up with an occasional line every other week. He called this very difficult for an actor to endure. He was correct. He did not stop doing it. Williams filled his idle hours listening to classical music, reading astronomy, playing chess, and buying stocks. In one reported exchange, he erupted with the words, "God damn it, I will kill you, Harris," before adding after a pause, "I mean Smith." Whether accidental or deliberate, it captured something completely real about the situation. After cancellation, Williams discovered that his Hollywood career had not survived being the background of his own show. Then he found that halfway around the world, his situation was entirely reversed. Zorro had become a cultural institution in Argentina. The government gave him a luxury marina apartment. The wife of President Perón personally invited him to perform at a charity event. He spent the last 21 years of his life living as something close to royalty in a country that had never forgotten what he meant to them. On May 6, 1989, police entered his Buenos Aires apartment after friends reported his disappearance and found him alone. A ruptured brain aneurysm had killed him approximately a week earlier. He was 65. The man who had been promised the lead of a television series died undiscovered, a week before anyone found him, in a country that loved him more than his own industry ever had. Every child who watched Lost in Space in the 1960s loved the robot. It waved its accordion arms, barked warnings, and somehow managed to feel warm despite being made entirely of metal and rubber. For 3 years, the person physically inside that machine was suffering in ways the production company had quietly decided were not anyone else's concern. Bob May walked into the Lost in Space audition by accident while applying for a different job at 20th Century Fox. Irwin Allen's team sent him to try on the robot suit. The audition was brutally simple. If you fit, you were hired. When May climbed out of the suit after his first session inside, he was cut and bleeding from the metal edges. He took the job anyway. The suit weighed approximately 200 pounds. Under studio lights, the interior temperature became what May later described as his own jacuzzi and sauna combined. The costume was nearly airtight. On at least 2 confirmed occasions across the 3 seasons, May passed out inside it from lack of oxygen. His eyes rolled back, and he went limp before crew members realized something was wrong. The production company's official response to these incidents was that there was no time to stop filming. Despite performing every physical gesture that made the robot one of television's most beloved characters, Bob May was never credited on screen during the entire original run. Not one episode in all 3 seasons carried his name. The practical consequence was lower pay and significantly reduced residuals. As Lost in Space grew into a global phenomenon, generating licensing income across decades, May and his wife were living in a mobile home park in the San Fernando Valley. In November 2008, a wildfire destroyed their home. 2 months later, May died of congestive heart failure at 69. What defined his later years was not bitterness, but extraordinary generosity. He became one of the most beloved figures on the science fiction convention circuit, staying at signing tables until every fan had their moment, no matter how long it took. A man made invisible by the industry that profited from him chose to make sure that no fan ever felt invisible in front of him. Before there was a robot, before there was a Dr. Smith, before there was a single foam rubber alien or a catchphrase about pain, there was a 60-minute film that Irwin Allen believed was the best work of his career. The original Lost in Space pilot, titled No Place to Hide, was filmed in late 1964 on a budget of approximately $600,000, making it the most expensive television pilot ever produced at that time. The cinematographer had won 3 Academy Awards. The special effects supervisor was a future Oscar winner. The writer later contributed scripts to Star Trek. Allen financed it with backing from CBS, 20th Century Fox, Red Skelton, and Groucho Marx. The story was clean and entirely serious. A family called the Robinsons launched toward Alpha Centauri, were knocked off course by a meteor storm, and landed on an alien planet where they had to survive. Both Robinson parents held doctorates. The children were prodigies. There was no villain, no comedy, no robot, no internal conflict. While Robinson sat around a campfire and sang Greensleeves. It played like a genuine film, a survival story about brilliant people facing a frightening situation with intelligence and cooperation. When Allen screened it for CBS executives, they bought the series immediately, then handed him a list of demands. They wanted a recurring antagonist and a robot. The ship was redesigned, and the original series pilot was locked in a storage vault, with roughly 80% of its footage eventually cut up and inserted into the first 5 episodes of Season 1. 2 details about the production rarely receive the attention they deserve. The Jupiter 2 interior set cost $350,000, making it the most expensive standing television set of its era, more costly than the entire Enterprise bridge on Star Trek. And the theme music was composed by a 24-year-old named Johnny Williams, who later became John Williams and wrote the scores for Star Wars, Jaws, and Indiana Jones. The end of Lost in Space is one of the most instructive stories in the history of how television treats the people who make it. The show ran for 83 episodes across 3 seasons and never received a finale. The Robinson family was never rescued. They never reached Alpha Centauri. The last episode filmed ended with the family still stranded, fully believing they were returning in 8 weeks for a season 4 that was never going to happen. The cancellation came down to a negotiation that Irwin Allen refused to lose. CBS offered a 4th season with a 15% budget cut. Allen said no. The show was canceled not because audiences stopped watching, but because the producer refused to accept less money. The episode that stands as the purest symbol of the series' creative decline aired during the final season. In The Great Vegetable Rebellion, Dr. Smith picks a flower on an alien planet and is transformed into a stalk of celery, while the central villain appears in a full-body foam rubber carrot costume. The writer arrived at Harris's dressing room holding the script behind his back, too embarrassed to hand it over directly. Guy Williams and June Lockhart could not get through their scenes without laughing. Irwin Allen was so furious that he wrote both of them out of the next 2 episodes, at full salary, as punishment for laughing at his own show. The episode later appeared at number 76 on TV Guide's list of the 100 greatest television episodes ever produced. The City on the Edge of Forever, widely considered the single greatest hour of Star Trek ever produced, appeared at number 92. Television is not a rational medium.